So everybody came prepared with their Twitters.
What do you mean by that?
Well, with at least having downloaded Twitter. Let's start there.
Okay.
That's a good start.
All right.
And I know you have yours.
Yes.
Okay, maybe we can get going, Susan.
Sure. So welcome everyone to our Heart to Heart Nursing Forum. And today our topic is powering nurses by advocating for change. Nurses and nursing students speaking up and out. So this topic was brought up in our last nursing forum, and it has actually surfaced a few different times. The need for nurses to build their confidence and skills in speaking up about issues that really matter to them. And certainly COVID-19 has brought to the forefront some really critical issues that we need to take action on. So we have a plan today. This is our overview of the plan. So we have going to have a panel discussion and also some really practical tips and strategies for you. So we have Deborah here, Deborah Lefebvre, who is a trauma-informed mental health specialist with Limestone City Mental Health, and she is really proficient with being a vocal. She's very vocal and active on social media, and so she's going to share her journey in building her confidence and skills, and also some of her top tips. Dr. Doris Grinspan, RNAO CEO, who many of you already know well, she is also going to share a little bit of her journey and her top tips. Then Madison Scaini, who is RNAO's communications officer and writer, is going to walk us through some social media strategies. Marian Zich, our Director of Communications at RNAO, is going to also share some of her own tweets and sort of why those tweets perhaps are effective tweets, or her thoughts behind developing those tweets. We'll have a Twitter tutorial from Renee Dunkley, our web and social media editor, and certainly we want you to share some of your strategies, some of your tips, anything that you wanted to talk about in your journey to becoming someone who is vocal and active in mainstream or social media. We do have a bit of a focus more on social media, but other thoughts are absolutely welcome. So we do want you to be active and participate today, and we'll have final remarks from Doris. So that's the plan for today. And I just wanted to, normally we do not record these sessions, but we anticipate that a lot of people who aren't able to be here right now will want to listen at another time. So we are recording this session so that others can learn in the future. So here are our panel members, and we have their Twitter handles as well, and we'll put those in the chat box. I think
that in a lesson about tweeting should have been in the screen. So here you go. We should add, before we post this, we should add them there. Lesson 1.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Below the name.
They are there.
Sorry, they are there. I am blind.
Yeah, so we'll put those in the chat box as well, and you're welcome to put your own Twitter handles in the chat box or your own social media contacts. So so maybe we'll start with you, Deborah, if you wanted to begin this conversation, and then we'll turn it over to Doris, and then Madison, Marian, and Renee. So I'll control the slides here, but this is the panel discussion. And Deborah, if you wouldn't mind starting us off with your responses to these questions.
Thanks very much, Susan. And as always, thanks to RNAO. I just tweeted out there about leadership and advocacy and confidence building. And that's why we're here today, right? Is to support nurse professionals in their own personal journey to better position themselves to speak up and stand up. And there have been Many identified barriers. RNAO has addressed some of them regarding the legal issues. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about that in our panel discussion. But for me, my personal journey started with a spark. And that spark, gosh, there have been a few, because I've been a nurse for nearly 30 years. So my sparks were both grounded in terms of advocacy, grounded in mainstream advocacy, and then social media advocacy as that tool became much more prolific. So I'm going back to, oh my gosh, guys, 1995. My first spark was working with First Nations people. I was a community health nurse with Health Canada, went up to Oxford House First Nation, and I was simply shocked, appalled, and disgusted with the fact that children were playing in a septic field right behind my lovely place of residence. So I networked. I came back to Winnipeg. I networked, got in touch with the Premier of Manitoba, some of my profs. I was doing my master's at the time. And before I knew it, there was a contingent coming up to Oxford House. And from there, I realized, much like you will following our discussion today, that in order to affect change, we need to become change agents. And so I then aligned myself with agencies, one of them being my professional nursing association, and then became, started advocating. My second experience, again, mainstream advocacy, but then also blending in social media, because now fast forward to 2004, was in the area of international disease prevention and health promotion. So from there, I again developed my network, recognized who my centers of influence were, nursing all along my entire journey in political advocacy and nursing advocacy. The one mainstay has been my professional nursing association, RNAO. Early on in 2000, Canadian Nurse, as well as the Manitoba Association of Registered Nurses. So we need to understand that we are stronger together, right? And so from there, 10 years working in international, and then this, gosh, about a year ago now, gosh, it's been longer than that, mental health, probably about 7 to 10 years now, I have been working in this field. And it was the loss of one of our own to suicide that was the third spark for me. And I have channeled each time my passion. So I encourage you to find your passion. What is it that makes you, that inspires you? Who is it that you know that you work with? I think of Doris when I say this. She inspires me, she motivates me. I'm eager to learn. So latch onto that, build on that passion, and then identify your centers of influence, follow those individuals. And what are my top tips? Well, I have many. And some of them I've already shared in response to RNAO Doris's question. But first and foremost for me is be kind. Know your stuff. Always acknowledge others, validate those individuals who may have been, who had that thought leader position first. So we tag individuals, right? In any social media, whether it's Facebook, but now more Twitter. Facebook, I'm finding, and I've watched this evolution, being a nurse for many years now. Facebook was a place where my children were. I have 4 of them. So, and then they moved over to Twitter. And so Facebook was left to the adults, and that's where it is now, right? Many individuals on Facebook, it's more of a personal sharing. It's not so much a tool for political advocacy, although I do inject some of it now and again, just to let people know I'm still alive in the Facebook world. But Twitter is my space. Twitter is our space. Instagram, I'm finding, is more for young adults, my children's ages. They're 21 to 26 now. But also it can be very powerful for me. I just find it's just too much because I'm working, I'm consulting, and you know, various other initiatives. So I'm finding Twitter is my space where I have the most influence, and I also connect with influencers. So the other is no third party on Twitter. And what I mean by that is we need to own what we put out there. Certainly we're tagging other thought leaders, right? Or acknowledging by quoting their tweets. But realize that when you retweet or quote retweet, you are amplifying that individual's message. And when you add your own piece to it, it then personalizes it a little bit and helps you to stand out amongst your audience, because people are listening and watching what it is that you're saying. I also, what I do on the daily basis is you have to tweet at least once. And I also favorite those individuals. So in this audience, I follow RNAO. I always check out RNAO every day. And Doris, I check out Doris every day. I check out Marion's tweets as well, who's our communications director with RNAO. And not only do they keep me up to date, because let's face it, guys, there's a lot going on in our world and a lot of hot topics. So rely on those that have the power of others to keep you informed. So RNAO in this case. And then retweeting and quote retweeting. Be kind, be gracious, be sincere. Own your stuff, no third party stuff. And what else have I got here? Oh yeah, create your group. And by that I mean is those people that are influencers, those people that speak your language, those people that align with your values, your ethics, they're important. That's your, I call it affectionately, they're my tribe, right? I have my friendship tribe, I have my social media tribe, I have my family tribe, my clan, whatever, however you wish to describe them. And when you're doing that, you're furthering your voice, and you're keeping up to date and staying informed. What else? Always. I mean, I follow people that I don't necessarily agree with their agenda. They're disruptors in their own right, as long as they are ethical, as long as they do not abuse others, they're not, you know, offensive. I follow them because I want to know what my frenemies are up to as well, right? So, and that gives me an opportunity to engage respectfully with these disruptors in a respectful dialogue. So I might be able to influence another person, or they might show me another point of view. Keep your mind open and always report abusers. I have zero tolerance for that. And when someone follows me, I don't necessarily follow them. And I'm just a small fish. I only have a couple thousand people on my social media. So I don't even consider myself an influencer per se. But I'm happy to share what I've done to help increase my presence on the Twitterverse. So yeah, I don't always follow people who follow me. And before I do, I check them out, because heavens knows you do not want to be associated with someone who is so completely offensive, that you've made that faux pas, and then people might see you to be aligned with that individual. So those are some of my top tips by way of how I've built my skill set. I rely on others. It's someone that that has earned my respect, and I give them respect back by retweeting, acknowledging, validating, and even reaching out for advice, because you can use your direct messaging service as well when you're looking for additional support, resources, advice. Even people don't always respond, and just know that that's not a personal affront. They're like, sometimes, guys, I get 100 direct messages, and I just can't respond to all of them in a day or 2 days. So when I do respond, I will start with, I'm so sorry, I've been really busy. You're important, and I'm getting to this now. So I validate and I let them know the reason why. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deborah. That was chock-a-block full of excellent tips, and I love hearing about your 3 sparks, that kind of fire in your belly that really made you need to take action in traditional ways, and then how that's evolved into social media. So a long list of excellent tips. So thank you so much, Deborah. Yeah, I think we all found that really practical and supportive of our own growth. So maybe I'll move to you. We'll just see if there are lots of thank yous in the chat box. Very helpful, fantastic tips. I did have one question, Deborah. Can I ask? And then we'll just see if other people have.
Maybe we leave the questions to the end. Otherwise, I'm afraid we will not get to
Correct.
Madison.
Yes, great. Thank you.
And they have lots of expertise.
Yes, thank you. Let's hear
And
you.
they may answer even our questions. So
Great,
here you
thank
go.
you.
So I want to first put things in context for people, just to fascinate yourself with how this platform took over the world in such a short time, relatively speaking. Yahoo started in 1994. Netflix started in 1997. Facebook started in 2004. Twitter, do you know when it started without Googling? In 2006 only. And look what Twitter has done to the world. So that's number one, for you to understand why it's a critical tool for leadership. In 2006, it started with the famous 140 characters. And in 280, it moved to, in 2017, it moved to 280 characters. Because this session is being taped, I am not going to give some of the more spicy, interesting stories that I have read, because I don't want to be banned from Twitter, because I respect Twitter hugely. But for those of you interested, ask me. Because the developers, the founders, the inventors are as interesting as Twitter itself. So just so you know, very interesting individual, especially Jack. Let me say this, I'm not going to build on how I got involved on Twitter. It's kind of a question of how did I get involved in leadership, right? Twitter is a tool for leadership. That to me is what it is. But Twitter is also a tool to get information. Lots of the media information I get through Twitter. I, for example, follow all the countries where we have best practice spotlight organizations. Hence why I know what's happening in each of those countries, because if I know the language, I read and I know what's going on. So sometimes I know about a disaster in one of those countries ahead of, everybody else knowing, because I read it through Twitter, because right away it's there. So Twitter is not only to build yourself in terms of your own leadership capacity, it's also to build yourself in terms of keeping up with the news, which is, by the way, part of being a leader, right? It's not separate from being a leader. Means you know what's going on. So hence why I so much push Twitter, both with staff and with members. It's part of being a professional, it's part of being a leader, and it's a tool that is extremely powerful. And I'm not going to dive deeper in what Deb already said of some of the other platforms and age cohorts, because we are focusing today on Twitter. But if there is one tool that anybody, regardless of their cohort, that wants to be in leadership should choose, is Twitter, because politicians follow Twitter, the media follows Twitter. You know what I mean? Some of the other platforms may be very good for friendship, for camaraderie, for sending pictures, social connections. But if you're looking for a tool for leadership, that's a tool where media is involved. Leadership is linked to media. You don't become a leader by having the door closed. It's like you don't find a partner. If you're waiting alone at home, someone will knock the door. Same type of thing. You got to get out there. And that's what Twitter enables you. I want to build, and first I want to say thank you very much, Deb. I didn't know you check once a day my tweets. Appreciate that. Or that I inspire you. It goes both ways. I want to talk about two things that Deb spoke and why those are important, and dive deeper in one of them. And then I want to give a couple of others. So Deb spoke about be kind. Absolutely, please be kind. And when you're not, know why you're not being kind, because not always you can be kind in leadership. When I decided to get involved in the Trump campaign, and I informed my executive that I would, because it was aligned with RNAO's values of getting rid of that gentleman, I could not be kind. There was nothing to be kind about Mr. Trump, right? So choose when you're not kind. That is something that you have a strong rationale behind, not just because you got upset that day and you just sent an upset tweet to whoever, right? So your first rule, what Deb said, be kind. And if you're not, it's like charting by exception. If you're not, you better know why. And it better be something that consistently you will not be kind about. Long-term care and what happened in long-term care homes. Seldomly, I or an RNAO were kind. It was outrageous, and there was nothing kind to be about, right? Except of the residents and the poor staff working there. But that's different than starting to attack the specific nursing homes unless you have a good reason, right? Difference. So for example, RNAO and I did not get involved in some of those issues because they were clearly on a separate agenda, not right or wrong. And I think Deb, you mentioned that, but it was more of a political agenda. Not that RNAO doesn't get involved in political agendas, but in the case of residents, whether they are in a home of for-profit or not for-profit, they need good care. So if we took issue, was about why, for example, they exempted for-profit homes from being sued, because that was an issue, because by and large, factually, they did worse than not-for-profit, right? So even though you tweet fast, think about what you're tweeting and the consequences of that. And in the case of individual nurses, they may not have so much need for thinking deep before they send something, but I represent RNAO. There is no tweet that I sent, you need to know, that I don't have the members and my board here. More than anybody else, the members and the board. And this is who I am. I can say this is my individual opinion, but there is no such thing with me. When Deb will be in the board, which she will, by the way, because she's acclaimed and is posted, so I can say it, she will not be able to tweet whatever she pleases. It will need to be aligned with the board because she will be part of the board, right? So she will need to uphold the positions of the board, which she does. So she's in a good place. I want to talk about something else. I think that Deb spoke about building up, or maybe I took in my note building up. Build others up. Build others up. If you are going to attack a person or an organization, you better have a good reason. Otherwise, build people up. And there are two ways, and I will advise, in my view, what's the best and why. One is to retweet. So you retweet and you like, or you just retweet, and then you comment. That means you are building them up and adding your voice to the issue. Or you retweet with a comment, right? If you go to retweet, if you go to the feature retweet, I'm looking at this so I tell you the correct thing. If you go to it, you will see that you can, I need to go to a tweet for it. Let me get to one of them. Oops, I'm not even in Twitter now. Okay, you go to a tweet and says retweet or says retweet, comment with retweet. It means you will not be the threat of that person's tweet. You're starting a new thread and you become the agent. So you're building yourself more than one, that originator of the. So to me, I seldom, if any time, I will do that. I will do that only if I think that what that person said is not completely what I would say. But even then, I try to do that in the thread, in a respectful way and keeping it up, right? So that then you build a thread and it becomes a community. It becomes a movement on that issue versus starting your own thing, right? Be authentic. Don't try to be someone else. Even if you read my tweets as Deb said and you like my tweets, be yourself. And if you never have tweeted, first start with retweeting, which many of you already know. I see who is in the line and I see, right? And then start to tweet your own things or retweet and then add a comment. It doesn't need to be long, it can be short, but it starts to build you up, right? It starts to build up your expertise on this. Another aspect, you will notice that I most often than not have pictures versus GIFs. GIFs only add fun. And by the way, yesterday I got a very nice DM direct message from Dr. Saxinger that said that my GIF was, I don't remember, fantastic or something. I will teach you how to find GIFs in a minute, but pictures are better. Number one, pictures of things that you have taken or pictures that you like on somebody else that you can keep in your repertoire. You know that picture of the nurse with that they're applauding to her in one hand and then they're putting the knives on the other. That's a picture I got from a colleague in Spain that showed up after in Andres Picard materials and tweets. Some people take offense with that. I don't. Twitter is a common platform. It's a platform for everybody. If you want to keep something in the closet, do not share it. Even pictures, because people can take your pictures and retweet them. When it's a picture of an individual, like I saw one beautiful from one of the seniors that works with us, and she sent a picture when took the father the first time out, a lovely picture. I asked permission from her in a direct message, can I use it? And she was thrilled, right? I would never use a picture of people without asking permission, but anything else, absolutely. And do I ask permission? No. Do you need to ask permission? No. Did Andre ask permission? No. Did I take issue with that? No. I just sent a tweet today during, I was having a little break, and in the breaks, I go and look what's going on if there is a break in the day. And Brigitte had tweeted that she's full of spelling errors these days. And I retweeted and said, well, me too, but to our rescue, is the autospeller, because it's true, especially for those of us that write more than one language that has the same letters as English. Do not ask me, please, when you see my WhatsApps and my Twitters, because my thing is so confused between Spanish and English that does spelling errors all the time, especially on names, because the names in Spanish are more or less the same, just with one letter different. Most people do not take issue. My name gets mispronounced, not Doris, but the family name so often and so misspelled. Do I ever take issue with media? I don't, but most people do. So pay attention to names. Don't misspell names, because you may get a message, and you may, worse even, and I will talk about, get a public tweet about you misspelling a name. That's another piece. When you have a beef to pick with a person about something like misspelling your name, or about whatever that is, not a matter of importance topics or whatever. Like if you want to say, like I did today, do people care about names misspelling? Because I wanted to gauge, do people care, right? And we are getting a lot of tweets about that, and most people do care. But if it is because someone misspelled your name, don't tweet around, my name is spelled da-da-da-da-da, can you not know? You know what I mean? Use the Twitter, I think they've said respectfully, because you will be respected more, and because people will follow you more. The more people respect you, the more people follow, with one exception, David Fisman. You got to follow him. Number one, I follow him because I respect him hugely, but he has lots of followers that would rather see him gone to, I don't know, to some island, because of his capacity to speak epidemiology, speaking what it is, not what people want to hear, right? So like me, but way more, he has the anti-maskers after him, the anti-vaxxers after him, all the antis after him. So do I, but I disregard them. He doesn't. I disregard them because I just don't have the time to dedicate more to Twitter. As it is, it's too much time. But apparently he thrives on it, and he then sends them all kinds of funny jokes, and to the extreme. So pictures are good because not only you draw attention, but you can tag along 10 names, 10 Twitters to that picture. And those Twitters will be alerted anytime you tag someone, either in the text or in the picture, they get alerted, right? So when you see that we are getting so much media attention, and this is important for you, Deb, too, you see that RNAO has so much, almost 7,000 media interviews this past year alone, okay? Many of them don't come anymore because the comms department is calling anyone. They call us. It has gotten to the level that they don't even call us sometimes. They just pick one of our tweets and they use it in the story. That I saw recently in Queen's Park. They couldn't get me and they took my tweet, and so be mindful, because your tweets may appear in stories, right? But in relationship to picture, tag along media that is relevant to the topic you are talking, and you may be surprised they may call you. Tag along other people that tweet that have lots of followers. Choose who you tag along, because people that have more followers then will start to follow you. But if they retweet your tweet, instead of 100 people seeing it, it will be, for example, in my case, 15,000 people receiving it, right? So just look at the reach, right? So that is important too. I think that the way you write a tweet, if you are a one topic person, which I cannot think of anyone here, but let's say someone that works on BPGs, okay? and wants to only tweet about BPGs. Let's put it even more specific. Let's say you are a staff nurse that works on long-term care, period, right? And you want to focus the attention of people on long-term care. It will be fantastic, right? You build your branding, right? People want to take the example of Jennifer Kwan. Jennifer Kwan, when the pandemic started, she had, I think, less than 1,000 followers. She has close to 70,000 now. And it was all built first on the masks that we were very involved with her, and then on her tremendous service that she has done for us on data sharing, on data transparency, on tracking. You know, the work that she and David and others put on that, no wonder they deserve the Twitters, the followers they have. But she has a brand. She doesn't tweet about, you know, Mr. Ford or this or that or the weather, or she does put once in a while something about the cat or this, but just for fun because it's important. But she has a brand. Her brand is data transparency, right? So people know, I know, you know, I want to know about data, I go to her. I want to know about the latest in epidemiology, I go to David. When people develop a brand, right, those that want to be around that brand or want to know, they will follow you because they want to know what's going on that, right? But for many of us, RNAO specifically, like someone like me, I need to be diversified, right? But then people know you because you're diversified. And in this case, they not only because I'm diversified, but I speak truth to power and they respect that. And they all the time comment on that, right? So know what you're trying to get out of it because it's very, very, very powerful. And now that we have people like Raulito, say hi. And we have people with other languages, Arlene, say hi, right? Arabic. Try to also tweet from time to time in your own language what we are tweeting. Like that will be a tremendous service. In your case, Arlene, in Qatar, they know English, but some other countries, they don't know English. And just picture if we are talking, I just tweeted about the chief nurse officer again to Mr. Trudeau. You can tweet in Arabic and say, in English first, chief nurse officer, Justin Trudeau, and then in Arabic say, does your country have a chief nurse officer? Just that will build your followers, but also it will take our message further, right? As a commentary. And also it will deal with issues of Islamophobia. So it has so many repercussions to tweet in another language that are, from the point of view of RNAO, super valuable that you're not taking advantage. So an idea there, Arlene. And for you, Raulito, in Spanish, which you did in the weekend, I think. And if some others of you, I don't know exactly who is here, has other languages, Daniel Lau, time to get into Twitter. We may convince him, who knows? In any case, I think those are initial ideas, and then we can engage more. I want to pass it on now to Madison and Renee, please, and to Marianne.
Great, thank you very much, Doris. I think we'll go to Marianne next. So Marianne, I'll advance the slides for you, and you can speak to these if you can see them okay. Speak to some of them.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank the panelists who've come before me for your very thoughtful remarks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of tiny history and then talk about my own feed. So Doris talked about, she gave the date, right? 2006, when Twitter made its debut. So RNAO joined Twitter in 2009. So in the spring, we launched our Facebook account, and then following 2 months later in June, we launched Facebook. And I initially was the one who set up the feed and then did the tweeting, and then it became the domain of the web and social media editor. And I remember the days when, you know, we were in workshops and we wondered, you know, what are we going to say? And it took me about 24 hours to realize we have a lot to say. And I think initially what you're trying to figure out is, you know, you want to engage your members, but you also want to make sure that you have enough to talk about. And there is no shortage of material in which to do that on RNAO because of the breadth and the depth of our work. And so if you think about where we are today, well, we are at 22,000 Twitter followers. Some years ago, we surpassed Facebook in terms of the number of followers. And I think that's a testament to what Doris talked about, the influence of Twitter. And, you know, there are among the many leaders and organizational heads that use Twitter and understand its power. Politicians and the media use Twitter, and that is why it's such an important avenue. It is through them that you influence and reach people, right? It's as simple as that. And we are, I think, very good at that as an organization, and then individuals themselves, Doris and so on, are exceptional. I want to now just talk a little bit about, you know, my role. So I joined Twitter as an individual later. And I do have fun. I try to make it interesting, right? So it's not just about my work, it's about my life. And if anyone follows me, they know that I'm an avid gardener and that I always tweet interesting stories. But I'm going to start with this one because this one is so interesting. This was, of course, February of 2020. We knew we were dealing with something very seriously. And the reporter who came to our office that day,
Sebastian.
also, yeah, that
Sebastian
was
from CBC, amazing. I remember that vividly.
yeah, and Sebastian knew how important it was and wanted to get a sense because, you know, a lot of people were really downplaying. And of course, we now know that, in fact, governments and health agencies were sort of downplaying, looking the other way, hoping it wouldn't envelop our country and our world the way the pandemic has. So I thought, wow, you know, this came across, I was just scrolling through my photos and went, wow, okay, I'm going to tweet something about this. And this one got a lot of likes, which was a bit surprising, and quite a number of retweets. But Doris was the first to be very, very vocal about how at that point in time, we needed to be far more active and proactive than we were. And we learned later that failure to take action was to our detriment. However, we were a voice. And because of that, you know, RNAO garnered lots of attention and of course, media attention as well. So the next slide is just kind of an interesting thing. You know, I read newspapers during the week, obviously, but on the weekend, I read more for my own pleasure. And it was such a gem to see this story in the Globe and Mail. And it was about a vaccination clinic in St. Catharines and how, you know, at this particular clinic, of course, when you're either waiting before your shot or afterwards your shot. So the people who organized this clinic wanted people who were waiting to basically say what they're thankful for, right? You got your shot, so tell us why you feel gratified about that. And it was a member who is part of that effort. And so I thought I would share that because it was important to share. It was, again, nurses at the forefront of something very important, not just in the vaccination clinic, but doing something that I thought was quite positive in terms of being able to display the gratitude that a lot of people felt about getting vaccinated. Now, the next slide, of course, you know, I tweet about anything. I tweet about articles that I like. I tweet about priorities that the association is pushing forward. But our membership work is so important because when we grow our membership, it is about expanding that sphere of influence that we have. And so this was a very good campaign that one of our membership people, she sort of conceived of it. And then our graphic designer, Olga, Kenya Dams conceived of it. And then Olga Gabrieleva brought it to life in terms of pictures. And so, you know, this is our campaign where you can join as a student for free, which is a bargain, right? We all know students have lots of costs. And so I was, you know, particular in this sense, because of course, if you're a nursing student, you may not think it's important to be part of RNAO, but it absolutely is. And that's why I use this as an opportunity to talk about it being an investment in your future. And then, you know, riffing off the fact that it doesn't cost you any money. It pays in dividends, but it doesn't cost you a dime. And you have networking and you learn about the association, an association that will be instrumental in your practice and in your career. And then another tweet that I wanted to share is this just came across my feed.
Marianne, don't go away either. So I just want for people that are newer on Twitter, you see how Marianne tags along people? That means that when you go, just as we go along, Marianne, for a minute, I want to show, if you go to your Twitter, guys, if you go to your Twitter account, which I'm trying again to go, you see that at the bottom, you have that envelope. That, don't touch it for now, but I will send you later a DM. This is what Deborah is saying, people may send you direct messages. So if you send a tweet, people may send you a direct message there because they don't have your email and they don't have whatever, and they don't want to ask you in public, like through a tweet. They will, if you look at the other one that looks like a bell, right next to it, you see it? Next to it when you go to the Twitter. Renee, you should put a picture later and we can explain. I don't know if people can see. Can you see even? That is blue now. So that bell at the bottom is blue. It would mean that people that tag me along, like Marianne here, it would mean if I follow them, which I follow Marianne, I will get a notice that they have tagged me along. So it's very good, right? Because like if I follow Deborah, right? I don't need to go and look at all of her emails. I will automatically then get a notification because I think, Renee, are you going to explain this later on?
Yeah, I will explain that.
Fantastic, because that's very good for people if they have 2, 3, 4 followers, that they don't need to be, you know, like all people may get anxious otherwise, that they can just go and look once a day and see and choose the tweets they want to retweet, etc. or none. Yes, Marianne, sorry. I just wanted to take advantage of what you did.
Yeah, not at all. Thank you very much, Doris. And then here is another tweet. So this just popped up in my feed. So it wasn't an RNAO tweet. And I knew that Doris was part of this effort, of course. And I also knew about, obviously, our nursing home basic care guarantee. So I wanted to sort of get a little conversation going about how Doris is part of this group. And rest assured, because obviously, you know, the ministry has its idea of what it wants to do, but I wanted to reinforce that Doris and we, as an association, will do everything in our power to make the staffing changes happen. Now, lesson learned, I probably should have added something to that. Probably should have linked to our nursing home basic care guarantee. So, but that's okay. You know, sometimes we have off days.
On the positive end, what Marianne did was terrific, because what happened when the government put their press release about, what is it called? Is it called the acceleration, the long-term care acceleration committee? Or they started to get blasted, right? Because anything that this government, or quite frankly, any government would do about long-term care, if things go as bad as they did, right, will be blasted. Honestly, anything, like things, almost 4,000 people die already, like a bit too late, right? So the fact that Marianne put, and we will do everything we can to shape things for the future. And then I tagged along to that saying, because people started actually to tweet, good thing at least Doris Greenspoon is there, she will speak up. And I basically said, I commit to resign if we don't move things. And I will. And you know, it's very powerful, because if people are retweeting that they're happy, RNAO is there. And Marianne already wrote to them, we will do whatever that we need. If things don't move, we can shake things up. Like, think the picture, right? The power of Twitter.
Yeah.
It's quite something.
And just to reinforce what Doris is saying, yeah, the purpose of this is to, to put them on notice. Yes, you can wax eloquently about what you're doing. Great. But we're putting you on notice. Okay, and the last tweet that I'm just going to share with you, and I just happened to pick this one, but there are many, many members that tweet about the work they do. And I thought this was important because this particular one was important because I think Birgit felt bad. She said, I look upset and I'm exhausted and I didn't have much to say. However, she said, my face said it all. And I just said, thank you. Thank you, because that she needs to know that her effort that day mattered. And that she's doing this on behalf of her fellow nursing colleagues.
I
So
want
that one in particular, I wanted to share.
I wanted to comment because it's important for members and also for staff that are involved. The position of RNAO on supporting members to speak out and up and sideways and up and down and all the ways. We will support anyone. There is a difference, however, between supporting everyone and linking people to the media, which we do with Birgit, which we do with Deb and a few others. We will only link members that we know will be in line with our positions. Simple. If we link them, it's because we want to give legs to our positions, right? It's because if we are focused now, for example, on the issue of retention and recruitment, we want to also mentor them if they need mentorship. Some don't need anymore, right? Some all they need is a tweet. Birgit, to her credit, because she is the most humble, amazing person, and Deb knows her too, and she is, and so is Deborah. From time to time, she will WhatsApp me. She would call me, Doris, is anything else that we need to put in the agenda? She's not a member of the board. She's a member of RNAO, but she's a very active and very authentic and very sophisticated member of RNAO, I would say, right? So this is important also because I see several members here participating today. We will, once we look and once we know that you are, it's not about being only speaking about RNAO. You have our own views, right? But if you are opposing to one view of RNAO, well, we can't link you to the media because Marianne and the comms department, are working at RNAO, whether people like it or not, right? I mean, that's right. Luckily, most people like our positions, but from time to time, right? In fact, at one point, just so you know, on the curfew issue, I did get an email from a member about, I think that is the wrong thing for you to be asking in the blog about the lockdown. This was later on, Marianne, when numbers were stabilizing more. It's not at the beginning. Because it may inadvertently, the person said, affect more racialized communities, minority communities. And I said, you're right. And I took it off the blog. I took it off the blog. You know what I mean? It's not that members, we learn from members also, but let's have the conversation, right? Don't go blasting the media in the Twitter or in the media RNAO for something that you didn't even converse with RNAO, right? I'm not saying it happens. I'm just saying, know that we will be leveraging on members more and more and more because we want to give oxygen to growing the power of nursing. It's very different to speak from RNAO, even if it's me, it's still from RNAO versus individuals out there. It's both are important. It's not more or less, both are important. So it's very critical. Sorry, Marianne, I took advantage of your comments.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you so much, Mary. Oh, did you have more to say? And then I think Deborah had a comment she wanted to make about.
I just had 3 quick tips before I hand things over to my very able-bodied colleagues who I know have lots more to share and not lots more wisdom to impart. Just my own rules is read your tweets carefully over. Don't count to 10, count to 20. Check your spelling, check your hashtags, check your links, make sure you're tagging people and so on. Be mindful. Sometimes you have something direct that you want to share. Don't say anything you don't want published. If you don't want it on the front page of the Globe and Mail, don't say it in a tweet. And then I would also just, and this point has been made, but I just think it's a creative way to also tweet, which is look for chunks of text in a story, look for a headline. I was quite moved when I saw that we had surpassed the 20,000 death mark in a weekend Globe and Mail story. So I took that front cover and I took a photo of it and then made a comment about that. So I'll just leave it there for now.
I want to make a comment very briefly about your comment on read 20 times. I do too. And then still, if you tweet it and after you tweet it, you read again and you say, oh gosh, I'm misspelling again or something barbaric. You know, because of the Spanish, I don't know if Raul happens to him. That happens to me a lot. Sometimes it puts a different word altogether, like a word that it has nothing to do with the content of the tweet. You still can go on the site. There is on the site, you have that mark, and Renee, I'm sure, will show, and you can delete. Tweets can be deleted. Even after a month, you can delete. But once you have like 20 retweets, if you delete, it's kind of goofy, right? If you do it right away, it's not. But yeah, read, and then if you made still an error, delete and do it again. It's a pain. The other thing, one easy, plug your stuff. Oh my gosh, it has happened to me. So frustrating. You know, some tweets require more thinking than others. I am like sweating over how to say it well so it will not be misinterpreted, blah, 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 blah. I am almost done with the tweet and the thing shuts off on me. Guys, plug, if you have a tweet and look at your battery first. If your battery is low, plug it and do the tweet while you are plugging it because it's so frustrating, so frustrating.
These are all excellent tips, very practical, learn from experience. So thank you so much, Marian, and then Doris also for those additional thoughts. And we'll turn things over to Madison now for the social media strategy tips.
Thanks, Susan. And yeah, great tips from Doris, Deb, and Marian. I am the communications officer / writer at RNAO, but formerly I was the web and social media editor for over a year. And so I had the honor and privilege and opportunity to manage RNAO social channels. And it was eye-opening, and it has grown so much over the past year. So yeah, I'm thrilled to see where Renee takes it now. But I just wanted to provide some tips in terms of the organizational level. Marian, Doris, and Deb provided some great tips from the individual level. But now this is going to be more from a brand perspective and how RNAO operates on Twitter. So I'm just. So when I first started as a web and social media editor, I really wanted to identify the purpose of why RNAO is active on social media. And when I say social media, I'm referring to the platforms that we are active on, which are Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Hopefully soon TikTok, but that I think is going to be a post-COVID presence. But anyways, as everyone mentioned, Twitter is definitely the most powerful tool for mobilizing change and our advocacy out of all the social channels. But it's still important to be active on all of them because we have over 46,000 members and counting. And our content is not just for our members. We are an organization that represents both nursing and healthcare impacts everyone. So we make sure that we're meeting our community where they are. And our purpose is to inform, engage, and inspire. So that's written there, and that is held true in everything that we do on social. So some preliminary goals that have held true with our presence on social media. So number one for me was establishing a voice for RNAO. And even though this is more organizational level tips and goals, think about how you could use this in your own use on social media. Once again, speaking more specifically to Twitter, but it's important to do that to build that credibility as a user on Twitter. So number one, establishing your voice is very important. Who are you? And be authentic, as Doris said, and I cannot reinforce that enough. Be who you are, be authentic, stick to your values as a person, as a nurse, as a member of the public, and your voice will shine through in everything that you do. Number two, for RNAO, an important goal was keeping members up to date on key happenings. And so whether this is our own webinars or news outlets that we were featured in, just keeping them up to date so that when they come to our feed, they know that it's not outdated, it's timely, and obviously healthcare and nursing changes day to day. So we need to be trusted that when they visit RNAO's social media feeds, they're going to get the most updated information. Number three is sparking interest among key audiences. And Deb actually mentioned the word audiences, and I think that's a really important word to own in on when you think of social media, because everyone has a different audience, but it's not just one. So you have your target audience. For us, it could be our members, but then think of all of your other audiences, and you can also interchange the word with stakeholders or just people who may be of interest. And so you could have plenty of audiences, and you need to find ways to speak to all of them in explicit and implicit ways to show people that they're heard. And even if they are disruptors, as Deborah greatly called them, it's important for them to know that you're also addressing any of their concerns. Once again, it doesn't need to be explicit, but it could be through sharing some facts or a news story that counters any misinformation. So that's one way to spark interest. Then another goal is engaging with members and in which the community we exist. So I'm going to kind of focus more on the latter half of that sentence, and that's the community in which we exist. So take some time after this presentation to think about the different communities where you exist. So for RNAO, that's nursing, that's healthcare, that's policy, that's international healthcare. There's many communities in which RNAO has a voice and can have a voice, and one that continues growing. So that's a very important part of thinking of your own personal goals and how to engage with those communities. What information can you share? What knowledge do you have? What expertise can you contribute to those conversations? Because the more your voice is heard and the more your messages are shared, it's amplified, and that it's just a ripple effect. And Doris has called it the nursing revolution. And I think that's fantastic for Twitter, especially because you keep rolling the ball and the ball gets bigger, and nursing has a voice and a bigger voice. And so we need to keep growing this ball. And so engaging in all of those communities is very important. Another goal is to reinforce RNAO's mission, vision, and values. And, you can sub in your own name, reinforcing your own mission, vision, and values as an individual, being authentic with your morals. And just, if someone says something that doesn't align with your beliefs, you could say that. And so in all of RNAO's posts, it was very important to me when I was managing the accounts to make sure and, take a second to think about what before you post, okay, what are my beliefs here? How does this align in the messaging that I'm saying? And just take your time to make sure that what you're posting reinforces that. And then a final goal is driving traffic to other RNAO resources, whether this is our website, documents such as letters or media releases, media advisories, as well as Doris's blog is another example. And this is just a way to continue building your credibility, linking to credible information, factual information, and that 280 character limit on Twitter. Well, now it's increased exponentially when you're linking to documents that provide a lot more information than 280 characters allows. So that's a great way to continue. And so I know, Marion, you mentioned that would have been an opportunity for you to link in your tweet to the Nursing Home Basic Care Guarantee. But that's a great way to think. You know, if you have extra characters, what else could you link to? You know, did Doris write about this in her blog? Did I see a news article that relates to what I'm talking about that can be shared? And this is a really good way to counter misinformation. And a big goal of RNAO is just to keep informing people of, you know, what's needed to fill the gaps in healthcare, to continue expanding the nursing profession. So that's always going to inherently be a goal for us. So just a few tips here on how to be effective. So the first portion was on some goals, and now how do we achieve those goals? So the first point I have is the 80-20 rule. 80-20 is it's a very fluid ratio. Everyone can determine their own ratio of what works for them. But the idea here is that 80% of the time, and once again, that number doesn't have to be 80%, but 80% of the time, you should be discussing and sharing posts that relate to the community in which you exist. And so, for example, nursing and health related news, building up other accounts and examples of that RNAO has done. So building up other accounts, tweeting out media stories that our members have been a part of, and discussing topics that relate to the communities in which we exist, and not just self-promoting. The 20% is that self-promotion. What are you doing? What stories do you have? You know, if you may have just published a journal article or something, promote that. Say, you know, I was featured in this media story. Those are ways that you're promoting yourself. And so that's the 20%. And this is an important ratio because you don't want people to come to your profile and it just be me, 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 me. They want to see that you are engaging with other content, and you're also interested in informing yourself and learning and building your knowledge base as you communicate and collaborate with other Twitter users. And once again, I'm saying, sorry?
I want to comment 1 second on that.
Sure.
As it relates to the policy of conflict of interest. And that goes for board members and for staff. Not for any member of RNAO, but board and staff, yes. It was an interesting conversation over the weekend, Madison, in my own family, because Yuval just launched, Yuval is very multifaceted, my son, and he launched a fantastic, what do you call them, those rooms that people go, what do you call them? You know, people used to go in person to play in those rooms that you need to get from one place to another. They're very well known.
Oh, like escape rooms?
Yes, thank you. That tells you how much I go to that. I went one time and then it was too complicated for me. In any case, they love, he created that virtual, and I'm not going to say more because that's the issue. And I said, oh, I can share. There are so many nurses that have spoken with me about this thing. Like I know Zainab loves it and and now they can go. He says, are you sure? And I'm like, you know, I'm not thinking, right? This is a family talk. I go, I have 15,000 followers. Why wouldn't I share? He says, wouldn't that be a conflict of interest? I go, oh yes, that would be a conflict of interest, right? So be careful. The other day, a reporter tweeted about the beauty of her daughter releasing a book. And people started to say, tell us the book so we can go and buy the book. And she never answered. She didn't answer because that would have been a conflict of interest. So that 20%, which by the way, is such a good rule that you have there, Madison, whether it's 80-20, 75-25 or 90-10, think about what's that 20%. Don't put yourself as staff or as board members, we don't have here yet, but we will, on a conflict of interest, right? So it's interesting. Even then you need to think that you are, if you are a formal position somewhere, you still need to think, right? Because we all, Deb not yet, but in the future, yes, I for sure, right? We built, yes, we came to RNAO with a lot of credibility and a lot of following. There was no Twitter in my time, but following in other ways. But we built a lot of followers and following because we are at RNAO. So basically anything now we say, we need to think still if we are connected as staff or as board, we need to think RNAO, even in that 20%. I just wanted to mention that piece because of the personal, right? Personal cooking, it's fine. Personal gardening is fine. Personal saying, here is the link to go and get my son whatever, or the book of what, you know what I mean? If it's the book of RNAO, yes, because that's the revenues of the book of, you know, the royalties of our book goes to RNAO. So again, think about that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Doris. Yes, so just moving on to the second point here, multimedia elements. So Doris mentioned this before about the importance of photos. And you could even see it just by scrolling through RNAO's feed or account on Twitter, just how we use multimedia elements to further amplify our message and also understand that the communities in which we exist digest information differently. So some people might be drawn to visuals, others may be drawn to text and links, others might be drawn to videos. It could be a 30-second video, a 5-minute video, a documentary, but you have to be mindful that including multimedia elements is important to just expanding the reach of your message. So try to include some form of multimedia in every post, just to make your message also more interesting. At the end of the day, you want users to engage with what you're saying. And so this is a great way to do that. The next point is constant monitoring. And so this is listening and responding. So don't just go onto Twitter, write your tweet and leave and log out. Monitoring is listening to what other people are saying. So Renee will go over some accounts to start following, just as a start, and read through the news feed, read what Deb has to say, read what Doris has to say. If you have something to add, you know, respond as they provided some tips there. And that's a way to listen to what your communities are saying and respond to it. And you don't have to always do this, but this is a good way to show that you are active. Being active on Twitter, for example, does not mean that you sent out a tweet. I'm active. No. Being active is really embracing the platform and using it to its fullest potential. Next, staying informed and share information. Pretty self-explanatory, but make sure that those are credible resources, which goes to my point a little bit further down. RNAO, we are an evidence-based organization. And if you look through our Twitter, this rings true in everything that we do. And so you should do that in your own practice as well. If you're countering someone's point or sharing something, make sure what you're sharing is credible. The internet is loaded with misinformation, especially in the past year and a half. And so making sure that what you're sharing and what you're responding is based on evidence and fact. It just builds your credibility. It'll build your following. And you know what? Chances are, if you do tweet something that is not evidence-based, you may lose some followers because you've lost your credibility. So that's part of the rereading, you know, are your numbers correct, that sort of thing. So, and when you have that evidence, share that information. RNAO has loads of resources for you to share to, you know, to address any points that you're making or to inform your followers on something specific. So use those resources. Next is quality over quantity. You could post, you know, once a day, you could post 25 times a day. But if you're posting 25 times a day, maybe reflect on, is what I'm posting really, you know, of quality? Have I used multimedia elements? Why am I posting this often? But if those posts are of quality and they are doing something and to, you know, expand your position or inform your followers in some way, like Dr. Kwan is a great example of that. She tweets a lot, but all of her tweets are of quality and contain great information. So whereas if you're tweeting just to say, oh, I'm eating a sandwich, not necessary. Depends on the sandwich, I guess, but and then a final point there is be familiar with the social platform. I know we've been speaking a lot on Twitter, and Deb brought up Instagram. Those are two very, very different platforms. Twitter leads with the multimedia components and the message, whereas Instagram leads with visuals. Visuals is what captures attention. And so that's something to be mindful there. I took a lot of attention to Instagram when I first started at RNAO because early career nurses are active there. And it's important that we are active there. If that's where they get their information, that's where we need to be providing them with information. But we needed to adjust some of our messaging there, as well as some of our visuals. They still align with everything I've mentioned in the goals portion of my presentation, but they're slightly altered to adapt to that social platform. So that's very important. Just a final little breakdown of how to be effective is when you're posting, these are 3 simple questions to answer. And that's 1, what does your audience want to know about? If you've developed a niche for yourself and you know that your audience is very interested in, whether it's your anecdotes, your experiences on the front lines, post about that. You can expand beyond this, but if your audience wants to know this and then you suddenly start posting about something completely unrelated on a regular basis, chances are your followers aren't going to be as interested anymore. So you may lose that audience. So that's number 1. Number 2, what ways can you inform them? And this plays back into, sharing factual and credible information, multimedia elements, those sort of things. So think about that. And number 3, what do you want them to do after they receive the information? Do you want them to, sign an action alert or just read it and have that information to discuss in their everyday life? Do you want them to respond to your tweet and engage with it or retweet it? So making that clear is important. And now I'm just, sorry?
Before you go, can you go back? I want to comment on another thing that this triggers me to think. Don't hijack a tweet. I'm talking about the 3 things that Madison put below. So you read the tweet and you get all excited. Remember that people went to that tweet and retweeted or like because they retweeted and liked that tweet. Don't hijack it to move to a completely different topic. Yes, you can give an opinion and put a slightly different, well, not a slightly, completely different perspective. You can even put the opposite perspective, let's say with anti-maskers or whatever, right? But don't use it to move to, I bought a car, or you know what I mean? That's called hijacking a tweet. Don't do that because it's not respectful. They have all these rules about when you write emails, don't underline and don't bold, unless really you need to underline and bold because it's like screaming. The other one, when you use a tweet of someone just because they have a lot of followers and you think that then you will get more people reading your tweet, don't do that. It's disrespectful. I thought just because of what you said, right? What do you want to inform, etc. If you go to a tweet, deal with that tweet. If not, write your own tweet, right? And you can still tag along people that have a lot of followers, and then they may retweet and get it to more people, but don't hijack the tweet of someone else for your own purposes.
Good point. Thank you, Doris. I'm just going to briefly go through some examples of... And
one more thing, so I don't forget, because it's really disrespectful and annoying. And I, for once, because I can afford it in terms of the number of followers I have, I do take issue with that when it happens. And I think you spoke about that, or Deborah or Marian, I don't recall who, about being the originator of an idea. One of you spoke about that. And I'm not going to give the example because I don't want to expose the individual, although it became public and the individual ended up apologizing and saying that I am just so good, blah, 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 which, goes like this to me. If you write about the topic and you were the first, and then Deborah comes and writes about that topic, acknowledge that first person. Be kind, again, the same, be kind, be respectful, right? Not because you have more famous and you got more followers, you have a right to be 2 days later or a day later, right? And Renee knows what I'm talking because we had put the tweet together, and then another whatever went and said we, and then people took the person and or the organization and say, no, it was not you, it was us, or it was so and so. Right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Right? There is no need for that. You get a lot of more respect if you acknowledge the originator. It happened with the issue of moving to the time lag intervals on AstraZeneca. And one of the pharmacists spoke, and then I did the tweet, a comment on hers and say, yes, yes, yes. And in fact, there is evidence for blah, blah, blah. And then a day later or 2 days later, someone completely different, didn't mention her, didn't mention me, which is also a gender issue, right? It happened to be because it was a guy and said, we need to do blah, blah, blah. And I simply tag along our tweet. And I said, we said it before. Like, there is no need, right? In fact, when you want to move a policy agenda, the more of us say it and the more we build on one another and recognize, the better. So that's different than hijacking, but it's the issue of respecting the originator.
Thanks, Doris. I'm just going to quickly run through these final examples before handing it off to Renee. So just this first example is just a way of knowing the platform in which you are active on. So for Instagram, there is a feature to add stories and highlights. And this is just another way for when people come to your feed to see who you are and what you're all about. So using that feature is a great way to get started with your Instagram account. The next are going to be, for Twitter. This is a great example of community management, which is just that constant monitoring, so listening and responding. So I had seen this tweet by Karen about journalists who use nurses as sources. And at the time, we were going through our Media Awards nominations. So I went ahead and quote tweeted this and mentioned our Media Awards. And then Karen actually retweeted it and quote tweeted it and said, yeah, like here's a Media Awards link. Deadline's fast approaching. So that was something. It was just I saw the opportunity because I was listening, and I engaged with it there. So that's just one example of how you can engage. This third example is engaging other accounts and users, which kind of tags on to what Marian, Deb, and Doris have said about tagging other users to basically have a tweet be to its fullest potential. And so in this, Twitter has a feature that you could tag the photo with up to 10 users. And so we do this on a daily basis to maximize the reach of the tweet, and we tag the relevant politicians as well as media outlets in order to get our message further amplified. So that's an example there. Sorry, I'm just speeding through these for you. And then this final example is shows the quality over quantity idea. So there's this tweet with a news story that Doris was featured in, and just a little checklist on the side here to make your post be higher quality and more meaningful. We include tags. So we have Doris, we have the reporter name as well as the outlet's name. We have hashtags, and these are consistent ones. So cheer for health workers, COVID-19. We have a quote from Doris to give people a little teaser of the story to get them encouraged to learn more. So we used a quote there, and that's another example of a resource is quoting. If you see a media interview with a nurse and something really captured your attention, tweet about it. And that's a great little teaser to spark that interest. A photo. So this was actually a screenshot that I took, and then I shared it. So then I had the opportunity to tag, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to tag these additional users. So that's a great way to do that. Spacing. So as you can see, it's not just one clump of text like news stories. It's easier for people to scan, and because think about on a feed, tons of content. So spacing out the information in your tweets helps people digest that material and engage with it. Whereas if it's one clump of text, it might be hard for them to scan. And so there's less chances of them stopping and really engaging with what you're posting. So even just one space, if you have a character room, even just one space helps. And then finally, the link to the news story. So that's the final step, the link to your resource, whatever it is. And then you could, if you have room, tag more people in your tweet. And that's an example of quality over quantity. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening.
That's fantastic, fantastic. Absolutely, Madison. You know, it's very different, I need to say. The expertise that Deborah or I bring, which is experiential. I mean, I read, I'm sure Deborah reads too about Twitter, but how much time, and it's not, you know, my field of focus. And when I hear Madison, every time something else, right? Every time something more to learn. So having both the professional expertise, because it's professional expertise, right? This is what she was hired for, right? And Marianne will concur with me. She brought us to a completely different book. Madison brought us to a different book in terms of social media. Not that the previous person were not good, they were, but she brought us to a different book. And then Renee will take us to a different book again. So, and we are, you know, we are kind of, Marianne also said, we are kind of tagging along from experience and learning from them and learning from what we see others doing, right? Thank you, Madison.
Thank you, Doris.
Great, thanks so much, Madison. So now we'll turn it over to Renee to kind of round out this whole conversation with a Twitter tutorial. So please, Renee, thank you.
Thank you. Is everyone able to see me well? Yeah, perfect. All right. So my name is Renee Dunkley. I am RNAO's web and social media editor, and I'll be taking you through a quick guide on how to create a Twitter account. So if you don't already have a Twitter account, this would be a great opportunity for you. So these are the different steps that I'm going to go through today for Twitter. So the first thing we have to do is actually sign up on Twitter, and then we're going to customize your profile. We're going to add a biography, follow some other users, and then lastly, we're going to tweet. So to start, what you're going to need to do to create a Twitter account is either to download the Twitter app on your phone, or on your laptop, you can go to twitter.com/signup, and that is how you'll be able to do the first step in creating your Twitter account. So I have a few screenshots here that outline the different steps on what you're going to see when you actually go to twitter.com/signup or on mobile. So you can see it was created on my mobile phone. The very first thing here is to create your account. You have in your phone, your name, your email, your date of birth. You will put in a bio. You'll be prompted to put some topics that you're interested in. And then finally, it'll say, welcome to Twitter, let's go. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on each step.
Just 1 second, Renee. Let's ask for a minute, it didn't occur to me before, so apologies to people. Can you ask, and people can say in the chat, and then Heather can tell us if we, and Marianne, if we have people that have not downloaded that need help with downloading?
Yeah.
Let's ask, right? Because maybe everybody has. It didn't occur to me to ask that. Because if they want to learn to download, we may need to go a bit slower. But if everybody has already, let's get a sense. Can people say yes if you already have Twitter? Or actually, let's do the opposite. No, I don't have Twitter. Say no. Only the ones that do not have Twitter, tell us, please. Say no. And don't feel embarrassed, because this is what the session is about. I think everybody has Twitter, meaning they have an account. And I am posting a tweet that I just saw from Christina, which is fantastic. So here you go for you to retweet. I already retweeted, here it is. So they already have the account, I think, everybody, so we can save that time. Although you may want to do it anyways for the taping. Susan, what do you think?
For sure. So if you already have the Twitter account already set up, then I don't have to go through, I can just kind of go through this part a little faster. But as you probably already know, you'd be creating your Twitter profile photo and your header here. Then I wanted to quickly touch on creating a bio. So a lot of you probably already have a bio, but there's a lot of different ways that you can create your bio for Twitter. And one thing I wanted to note was that you can really use it as an opportunity to showcase the different things that you're interested in. For example, this fake Twitter account is interested in animals. As you can see, I wrote animal lover, hashtag save the whales. So if you're interested in nursing, you can put hashtag nurses health matters, or write that you love different aspects of nursing. So when someone comes straight onto your account, they already know who you are and what you're about. And another thing I added here was tweets are my own. So this is something you might have seen on other people's profile, and in case you weren't quite sure what it meant, basically if someone has, so right here it says occupation, I will write the different organizations that I work with. I want to be able to differentiate myself from the organization that I work with. So that's something that's really important, especially if you're in a public-facing role, or if you're not in a public-facing role, and you want to make sure that it's clear that your tweets aren't what the organization's stances on certain things are. That's a very important part that you might want to, if you don't already have it on your bio, you might want to incorporate it. And then here I had just some tips on creating your usernames, but I'm going to assume that a lot of you already have your usernames already created. Okay, and next here I have some users to follow. So we're starting with RNAO. If you're not already following us on Twitter, here you are. Here's our handle. We also, of course, have Doris. We have our RNAO president, Morgan, Angela, Jean, Susan McNeil. So I'll be providing you, or Susan will provide you later on with all these Twitter handles with different people you can follow from RNAO. And then
Yeah,
we also
and it's interesting because we don't have the time, but
yeah,
it's very interesting when you follow different people, because tweets have a personality. I find tweets have a personality. I know when I follow Angela, Angela has a very passionate way of tweeting and very clear. Susan is kind of, very gentle in tweeting. Still her style, right? Deborah is very kind in tweeting. Tweets have a personality, and it's beautiful, right? It's beautiful because when I say about David Fishman and that his tweets, I follow them because I just laugh also. I get laughed, and not only I get epidemiology knowledge, I get laughter relief. Not always I retweet some because it's too much laughter relief, but sometimes I go, yes, all but please not the F word. I do. I retweet minus the F word, I say. But they have a personality, right? And people, and you think you know the people and you don't know them. Many times you haven't met these people and you get to know them through Twitter. It's quite beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everyone's tweets kind of like your own little personal story. So some other accounts that you can follow, of course, we have Deborah, we have Brigitte, and The Gritty Nurse, which is a healthcare and nursing podcast. And
so The Gritty Nurse, just so you know, is actually Amy and Sarah. So if we are going to put this there, then you need to put the two nurses, the two friends and a dog, which is Deborah and her colleague, so that we, just out of fairness, have the podcast. The Gritty Nurse is a tweet, but it's also a podcast. And Deborah also has with a colleague a fantastic podcast. Put both of them later on. I think will be great.
For sure. Yeah.
And they're all fantastic. Yeah.
Include all the podcasts there.
Yes.
We also have Sarah Fung, who's and Amy, the co-hosts of The Gritty Nurses.
And then there is another one that does podcasts. There are several. Deborah can send you. Deborah is a podcaster. Deborah, you need to know, but we are not going to move there today. When you look at Raulito, diga hola. Raul, and Raul is new at RNAO in Kenya. Raul is a media producer. We are going to very much going to get into not only visual, but audio podcast. And we are going, in Tweet, they asked me the other day if we can form a group that maybe we talk about common messages once in a while. We're going to bring people together 2 or 3 times a year, not to comply with our messages or to dictate our messages, but to share what are the hot topics we should be talking. So everybody from their own seat can push into these issues that are all about nursing and health and healthcare.
Could I just speak to this about the podcast? We are restructuring our talent right now. We've taken the summer off, but it's known as 2RN 1MD. I'm not promoting that right now because we are restructuring, as Doris is aware.
So maybe we don't include it now.
No, please
Maybe
don't. Yeah, because
Very good.
we're dormant right now, but you
Very
will be
good.
hearing from us later.
Not a problem. Not a
Thank you.
problem. Yeah.
Right, for sure. Right, almost there. So one thing Doris already mentioned about Twitter, like this is the last step in creating your Twitter account, is to actually tweet. So Doris mentioned that, of course, there is a 280 character limit. So you have to be very concise and choose all the words that you want to tweet out very carefully. And as Doris already mentioned, tweets cannot be edited. Once you tweet something, it's out there. There's no way to edit it. Only thing you can do is delete it. So be sure to really think about what you're tweeting before you tweet it. And then we also want to make sure that on a lot of your tweets that you use hashtags. So hashtags are just the pound symbol, and it's a way to index different topics on Twitter. So if you want to find a tweet that relates to nursing, you can look up hashtag nursing, and all the different tweets about that particular hashtag will show up. And I can show you in a second what that would look like. And just a quick note, you can't add spaces or punctuation in a hashtag. And lastly, as Madison already went over, is to build your audience. So you can tweet about different news stories that interest you, and we really encourage you to really be active and advocate for different things that you're interested in on Twitter. So that is our presentation, and I included also here some helpful links. So this is linking to Twitter if you needed help with editing your actual Twitter account, or if you wanted to look on Twitter's blog, we have a really helpful resource there that can help you with some other tips and tricks if you want to learn more.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Excellent presentation, Renee. Thank you so much. And make sure that today all of you need to tweet. All of you that have a Twitter account need to tweet. At least one tweet. At least one, right? We gave you one already. I'm sure Deborah already tweeted about this session, so I'm going to go and retweet hers too. And anything else. And Christina, you got a lot of retweets already. I saw it. Excellent. Any questions you want to open for a few minutes for questions, Susan?
Sure. I think Raul might have had a question a bit earlier.
Hi. Yes, no, it was just something really quick that I wanted to mention about, well, I have like a long list, but you guys were just great. First of all, I really appreciate when there's like insightful information that is well prepared, and I really enjoy this time, guys. Thank you. And then two things about delete tweets. I only delete my tweets when I do a misspell. There's a saying around said the internet is forever. They can even pull up the tweets that you deleted. So of course, people said it. Be very careful of what you write. Right? A good advice that I got once from a teacher was everything you write, think your mom is gonna read it. So that's the best way, right? In any way. So when you delete it, there's ways to pull out your tweets, even if they're deleted. So if I misspelled, I can delete it, because if somebody said, oh, you deleted this, yeah, it's because it's bad, it wasn't well written. So that, but I think my suggestions to people who want to delete something that they said, right, because they just change your mind or they want to apologize, the best way to me is to take that tweet, retweet it myself, and write, you know what, I said this before, I think I was wrong, I apologize, and that's gonna speak really well about you guys, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's the best way instead of deleting. And The second thing is about, well, I just create my corporate Twitter, right, for do all the RNAO things, but politicians especially are really, really bad at organizing their people in Twitter. I don't know if you have seen it, but sometimes they get, I think they share, right? I like how Doris does it. She just shared a tweet and said, you know, share this, please, and then she's playing because we want to advance this and that. But some people just said, retweet this exact tweet. And then you can see and you can find in the internet, there's 20 or 30 tweets who say exactly the same. People can see that very, very easily. It's very, very easy to find. So don't spam. If you want to retweet, it's better to just retweet and not say anything. Then just try to, you know, repeat the same words that everybody's doing. If you want to say something, say it, of course. But be careful with the spam, right? With repeating the same.
If you are going to write, don't write the same of the previous person. That will be called even hijacking, could be misinterpreted.
That's right.
Just retweet.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, just retweet. Right. That's right. Or even say something like, "This is great." You know that's perfect, right? You can. I love this. All right. But yeah, that was something that I wanted to mention. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Raul. I want to answer to Arlene. Thank you, Arlene, for thanking, for congrats to RNAO. Let me talk about what Twitter verified is. And thank Renee that they responded so quickly to our call to apply for it, and we got it on the first shot, not surprisingly. Twitter verified is that check mark, that blue check mark that you see. It's not simple to get it. There are issues going on with it. There is a lot of discussion on Twitter about it. Some issues that maybe is gender bias, some issues that some are saying, oh, why is only doctors and not nurses? My suggestion is, number one, if you are going to blast Twitter, be smart about what you blast, because do you have the facts? If it's gender bias, or if it's doctor bias, or if it's whatever bias, I respect the views of people saying that. I have not retweeted those tweets that it is this or that, versus Renee, please apply. Renee applied and we got it. So one of the very few healthcare organizations that has received it. So yes, Arlene, thank you for reminding us. So I did then, once we got it, tweeted that now we will apply for people, and I even put a list of people, right? And I was very thoughtful on who to put. So I put 3 past presidents, I think, well, our current president and 2 or 3 past presidents. And then I said, and nurse advocates like, blah, blah, blah. And I went for people that have at least 2,000 tweets or more or something like that, because they ain't going to give you if not. They're not going to give to people that have 400 people, and it's not gender bias, and it's not profession bias. It is that then everybody they will need to, you know, they need to verify it. They need, oh, sorry, they need to verify it by hand. Like, this is not, people think it's an automatic thing. It's not, because they need to go to your account. They need to know what you tweet, not if they like what you did or not, but that you are a real person, that is not a troll, because there are lots of trolls now, right? So be respectful, be patient. We are going to apply for and notify those that we apply, because there are ways to apply from an organization that is easier than otherwise. But we are going to, so this is a good point, Renee, at some point post AGM, in addition to the ones I mentioned, just to start to do a search. And Deb, you also are in Twitter a lot. If you identify nurses, with all due respect, I am going to apply on behalf of RNAO. We are going to apply for nurses. That's our business, RNs and NPs at this point, right? Once we have 50 of them with the blue thing, then we will be generous to others. But for now, we hardly have any, in fact, any nurse with that tag. Go for it and let us know, Deb, who has more than 2,000, etc. Yes,
Thank
please.
you, Doris. Doris and Susan, I just think I wanted to quickly mention the piece about nurse leadership and advocacy in social media, particularly on Twitter. We've had many discussions around the fear of reprisal when nurses speak up and stand up and speak out. I think it was Renee who mentioned very important on your Twitter bio to say your tweets are your own. So you're owning them. You're not speaking on behalf of your place of work, organization, or otherwise. Also, if you put anything out, if you're interviewed, for instance, I was interviewed recently, I was at work. I went out to my car off the premises to be interviewed because I said some things that my workplace may not be happy with me about. So protect yourself and speak for yourself. Never reveal patient names. Everything is confidential. Never reveal where you work. Unfortunately, they found out where I worked. I haven't heard any repercussions, but I think it's kind of hard for them to, reprimand me when the CEO has complimented me on Twitter a few times now. So I think I'm feeling a little safe or safer, but still just know, and I know RNAO has said, if anything happens and you're speaking respectfully, truthfully, and respecting confidentiality, if anything comes down on you, reach out to RNAO. Am I correct in that, saying that, Doris?
Yes, 100%. As long as the person is thoughtful,
Yes.
we will work with you. Like if you go like and go berserk on something that you haven't checked the facts, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
And it's just your personal opinion, and you're putting your employer or anybody or RNAO at risk because of that, no, we're not going to be on your side. But if you have done homework and you're not naming your workplace, you're talking about the topic, you're talking without patient name, you're not in the premise, it's called democracy, darling. It's called democracy, and I have tweeted about that. Yeah. And I have put that piece, nurses will not be silenced.
Yes.
Because why do you see so many docs and not enough nurses, right? Because docs are independent agents, guys. Docs are not employees, right? They get they're approved by MAC, but they're not employees for the most, so they can be, but even they speak very, very, factually. Like you don't see, speaking whatever it pleases. Well, I shouldn't say there are some. Last night, I actually took one that was talking against vaccine and against it and against the other and against the other. I mean, you shake your head, and you have had a few nurses, not many, that actually are breaking the law. If you were going to a rally when there is a lockdown and you were without a mask, I mean, I'm sorry. No, we are not going to be on your side. Actually, we'll be on the other side of the street with you. Yeah, and I think we need to assert our democratic rights. It's very dangerous. This happening a lot during SARS, much less now than in the 90s, that nurses were completely silenced. Ain't going to happen again. Number one, it's so difficult to stop a voice with social media. That's number one. During SARS was no social media, right? 2003 was no Twitter. But second, the sleeping giant has awakened, and it's a good thing. We are going to give oxygen to the sleeping giant. That's that.
Nursing revolution.
Yes,
someone mentioned it earlier.
Read my next column. It's the third phase of nursing evolution during the pandemic. It's nursing revolution with a purpose.
Yeah.
To make things better for the public and for the profession, both.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we have a hashtag there. Thank you, Raul. Hashtag nursing.
I like that. I like that.
So it's pretty exciting.
Can we put it after my column, please? Wait for my column at least.
Okay, I won't.
We will include it in my column.
Okay.
Great. So thank you everyone so much for your attendance today. A special thank you to Deborah, Doris, Madison, Marion, Renee for all sharing these excellent tips that I think the whole purpose of this was to help participants build their skills and their confidence in speaking out and being vocal and active. And I think that's exactly what happened today. So thank you all so much. And now it's time to apply what you've learned and get active on Twitter. So I think we'll
I need to tell you,
Yeah.
Susan, so that we can take pleasure and pride that from the stuff that I see here, all are Twitteries now. Almost all are Twitteries, absolutely yes. And I really take a lot of pride because I know it's not simple. I know it's not easier. People are afraid. So kudos. Doesn't matter if you retweet or if you tweet. And then a word of caution. I don't know if Deborah has that syndrome, but I definitely do. Be careful on addiction. I am serious. I am deadly serious. I put this thing aside when I need to review documents because if not, forget it. And I can see people that I'm sure have addiction. I just didn't ask them because not here, but you know, it's very addictive because what happened is not only you are giving your message, you're reading the messages of others and they're interesting and you want to respond and you want to give your view. You know what I mean? So don't get addicted. If you want time off, Heather is very good at that. Set your machine off. So does Susan. Put that in the drawer when you don't want to deal with that. It's not mandatory to retweet. And you do not need to be on standby for retweeting. And you can always retweet later. And if you get some tweets from us at the wee hours, it's simply because we don't want to forget. You know, I don't remember which CEO, by the way, someone needs to do a research. When did CEOs of Ontario hospitals came to Twitter? Because it was quite late, comparatively speaking, than some of us. And I think goes to the point of, I think it was Madison and Renee that mentioned at one point people discovered that you got to be on Twitter if you want to shape things, right? Well, but one of them put a hashtag or something in their email, and I loved it, and I would credit the person if I just can remember who, that said, I send my emails when it's convenient to me because of my schedule is erratic. It doesn't mean you need to be answering when it's not convenient to you. Or it was something like that. And I think in the Twitter it's the same. If you get something, it doesn't mean you need to do it right away, you know. But what we didn't teach, I think, Renee, is how to follow people. Because but not only how to follow, how to receive the tweets from them. Because then people don't need to be paying attention. But say I want to follow Deb, right? I do the following and I do then the click next to the following all tweets. Then I don't need to be focused on when did she send something. Whenever it's convenient to me, I will go to my machine and get that bell that will have a lot of those tweets, right? So you may want to look into that. Good luck. Thank you for giving voice to nursing, to RNAO, to the issues that are important. And Renee, Madison, Marianne, and Deb, you were fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you.